Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for Fairfield County Virtual Community. I know we only had one virtual community last month, so it's nice to have a full schedule back up for December. So we're going to start off December with Karen Martin from Afterschool Programs of Lancaster. She's with us today. She's going to share her information on her presentation, and then we'll do questions at the end. So Karen, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for your interest in our program. I wanted to give a little background about myself first before I talk about the program. I am a licensed pre-K to third elementary school teacher. And when I was in kindergarten, I promised my kindergarten teacher that I would grow up to be a kindergarten teacher, and that's what I did. I taught kindergarten for a few years. I've taught preschool for a few years. I took some time off to raise my two boys and then homeschool them through elementary and part of junior high. And then once they both were in junior high, it was time for me to re-enter the work field again. So I was kind of evaluating my options, whether or not I wanted to go back into teaching. I did keep my teaching license current throughout that time. And I realized I wanted something a little different than being in a classroom setting with students. So that's when I found out about after school and what they do. And I was really drawn to interacting with students differently and working in a small group, building that relationship with the students more on a one-on-one aspect. And so that was very enticing for me. And it's also extremely rewarding, especially when you see those little positive changes that you're helping your students achieve throughout the school year. So in 2014, I started with Afterschool Programs of Lancaster as an academic coach, and this was at South Elementary School. That was actually the last year that South was an elementary school as they started to build these new wonderful elementary schools all around town. Over the next several years after that, I worked as a child care program assistant, eventually a site director at a child care site, then eventually a site director at a grant site. And then last October, Michelle Richland, our former executive director, accepted a position with the Ohio After School Network. And so that opened up this spot as executive director of our program. We greatly miss Michelle, but she is doing wonderful work across the state now, advocating and supporting all after school programs and students statewide. So we're very happy, extremely happy for her. I miss working with the students, so I try to get into the buildings to get some time with working with them, but this position is also rewarding in itself as I am training and modeling and leading our staff to continue to run and affect the students' lives in our programs the way that we've always been established to do. So a little bit about our history. We started as an organization in 1998, and we were West After School Center. Specifically, the sole purpose was to provide free academic support and mentoring to students just at West Elementary School. So this was a program provided actually in a church across the street from West Elementary School in their basement. And then volunteers throughout the community would come work with students. They had over 100 volunteers with teams assigned to each student. So every student had a team of 4, and somebody would be scheduled to come Monday, a different person Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And they would keep rotating on that schedule to build these relationships and work one-on-one with students. This program was extremely successful and evolved to eventually serve East Elementary School. And then we were able to build our own facility. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with this side of town, kind of over by Anchor Hawking in the old West Elementary School on Garfield Avenue is where we used to house our main office and programming for the West Elementary students in the After School Programs building on 620 Garfield Avenue. We currently moved our main office over to Connection West, which is the old West Elementary School. So it's a little ironic that we are now housed in the same building of the students that we initially were created to help. But we didn't need the facility anymore once Lancaster built these new elementary schools. our building was not close enough to an elementary school for students to be able to walk to our program. And we like to be able to have our program in the building, so we're not having to worry about transportation or having parents concerned with how their students are getting to our program. Eventually, Lancaster City Schools joined forces with us and partnered and invited us to come into their buildings. We're in each of their elementary schools. If we receive federal grant funding, we are able to be in the junior highs as well. We just currently don't have any junior high grants right now, but we try every year to see if we can get those. There is some confusion because now we are called Afterschool Programs of Lancaster. We felt that that name encompassed who we serve, everybody in Lancaster, not just a target on West Elementary students. Now they're Gorsuch West Elementary students. So we legally still are West After School Center. So if you hear that name, it is still us. We just do business as After School Programs of Lancaster. Some of the things we're going to talk about today are purpose and services, what we offer, our current enrollment, grant recommendations, grant results from last school year, our summer program. So we are an academically based childcare program, and we currently operate before and after school programs in Gorsuch West, Medill, Mount Pleasant, Talmadge, and Targhee Trails. In every elementary school, they offer private paid childcare. It's only in Gorsuch West, Medill, and Mount Pleasant that we're able to offer that free grant program right now to students. And our mission is to enrich the educational, cultural, and social experiences of students and families in our community. That is the address currently of our main office at the bottom, 625 Garfield Avenue. If you ever want to reach out to us, the phone number is there, 740-653-5678. And then our website, apolancaster.org. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And we rely heavily on grants, local grants, federal grants, donations, community partners to be able to offer this programming at no cost to students. So in the buildings that do not have grants right now, Talmadge and Targhee Trails, we try to receive funding to invite students into those programs, because we understand that in every building, students are struggling academically with language arts, math, socially, emotionally, including the junior high. So it would be nice for us eventually to get to a place where we could offer programming, not solely relying on federal funding, but as a community as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we offer. Just because our locations are not all grant funded, we operate all of our locations as if they were. So our grant requires us to target the language arts skills, the math skills, social emotional learning, and then enrichment. So we try to get that STEAM included in there with the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So we offer the same program at all of our locations to each student, regardless of whether they're in need because of the grant or if they come to us with private paid childcare. So some of the things you'll see here, this is one of our Scribblebot activities that we did. They created robots with markers attached to them, and we're able to turn them on, and they would actually scribble all over the paper and make some neat art there. We have done squishy circuits. This is where they're taking some Play-Doh, some modeling clay, figuring out different things with polarity, putting things together. They can make fun shapes, and then ultimately connecting and completing a circuit that would light up some of their lights. Here we're using our Ozobots. We do this with our 3rd through 5th graders, where they're actually learning some coding. So depending on what kind of color code they add to their black lines on their paper, we'll tell the little Ozobots kind of sitting underneath the girl at the bottom's hand. It's very little, tiny little Ozobot, what to do. So if he goes over a code and you told him to turn around, if you put the code in correctly on your paper, he'll turn around, or maybe he'll all of a sudden take off and go really fast, or maybe he'll slow down. So they have a lot of fun learning the process of coding and then actually seeing it put into place. There's somebody testing out their code. We also use some CRISI 8 math curriculum. It helps us have hands-on activities to teach our students different principles of math. We did some lessons about polygons with glow sticks, and they were able to make their shapes, and then we turned off the lights. And especially in the gym, if you have no lights left on, it's a pretty neat effect for them to see their creations in the dark. Then from polygons, we stepped it up and created and talked about polyhedrons, and they were able to create really neat skyscraper type creations as a team. So we like to encourage that team and family atmosphere and support that in our program as well. Here's another one of those STEM challenges. Take some gummy bears, some marshmallows, and toothpicks and say, how tall of a structure can you build? So different ways that we are giving our students hands-on enrichment activities that then they can build off of later on in life. Here's a student working on our iExcel program. We use iExcel, which is an adaptive web-based program for some language arts and math enrichment. What we like about this program is it will assign the students skills based on where they test. So it'll do a diagnostic of each student, giving them questions that are really easy about where they should be, and then hard. As they answer these questions, it figures out what skills they need to target. And then our staff is able to go in and assign them the skills that they need to work on, and then monitor their success. So if we have a student assigned to 5 skills and maybe they start working on one and it's taking them 10 or 15 minutes before they pass the skill, that's a trigger for our staff to know that that student's struggling with the concept the skill's teaching them. So the staff member later can log into this account and actually see how the student answered every question that was assigned to that skill and try to notice a pattern so that they can target the one identifier that the student's struggling with. So for example, I had a 5th grader working on skip counting backwards by 10 and by 5 and 10. And she was struggling passing that level for about 10 minutes. So I switched her to something else that she was able to pass. And later that day, I looked at her answers, and all of the questions, skip counting by 10 backwards, she was able to answer correctly. But the questions, skip counting by 5, is where she struggled. Her first number, she would count backwards by 5, but then she'd automatically switch to counting by 10 the rest of the way. So that's how she was missing those questions. So then the next day when she came, I was able to plan some activities that quickly just went over some strategies she could use to help her understand how her thinking was and how to switch her thinking. You know, after you put in all your answers, start counting forward by 5s. Did it make sense? Did you get that right? Double check your work. And she was able to grasp that concept very quickly and then move on and pass that skill. So sometimes students are upset and frustrated because they're not making progress. So this program allows us to see exactly where they aren't making progress. So we're not wasting time, we're not wasting their time, and they're not staying in a frustrated state, not making improvement. One of our other aspects that we support is social emotional learning, and that is another requirement of our grant as well. So we do a lot of things with character. So here were just some activities. We did hands-on things and then also discussions with different things. This one was specifically about citizenship. We also talk about trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and then we've recently included a second step bullying curriculum into our program as well. We bring in other partners to do programming for us, and that's where some of our funding helps pay for those programs that do have a cost, and then some programs are able to provide things at no cost to us. This is SnapEd. They come in and do some education on nutrition, and she was teaching the students how to weigh dry ingredients and wet ingredients in that lesson. And then they always provide some type of recipe that they will bring. They will make it with the students, and it's usually something our students aren't typically experienced eating or even seeing or touching. So it's fascinating to see how when they prepare their own food, they're more motivated to try it and eat it, and things that we didn't think that they would even want to have any interest in. We've partnered with Decorative Arts Center before, and they've come in and helped us with that art piece. Here you can see how we relate the literature with the art, with the artist and the color wheel. Alley Park, with the Parks Department, they come and do their live programs, sometimes bringing animals, sometimes just building off of programming that we're already talking about. And that's another great partner that we have for our students with some hands-on learning. And Fairfield Christian Church has donated money before for a food giveaway. So they provided food for 3 weekend giveaway meals. We did one a month, and we were able to send home sling bags full of meals for the weekend for our grant students at Gorsuch West. So now I want to talk a little bit about our success of our grant programs that we had last year. Because of COVID, things were so much different, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to reach the students or impact their learning the way that we had in years past. And considering that our students only attended half the time that they normally get with us, since they attended school just 2 days a week, we were very happy and in the success and what we were able to accomplish. So this first year-end grant review is for Gorsuch West. We served a total of 23 students. 9 of them were economically disadvantaged, 23 were academically at risk, 6 had IEP or 504 plans. Those are plans that the school create with them, either for a learning disability or maybe a medical disability. The outcomes: reading, 39% of them demonstrated progress toward a year worth of growth. 44% had progress in a year worth of growth from math. And 61% increased their language arts grade, and 56% increased their math. Some of the youth development programs we offered were our Mad Hatter character curriculum that was very interactive, and we incorporated the whole Alice in Wonderland theme monthly into our lessons, eventually ending up with a tea party where they had to practice all the character that they had learned about. That second step bullying, and then a service learning project I'll get to in a little bit. And then we also bring in the family piece of that. Our grants do require us to reach out and hold family events. So we had our Lights On after school event. We held a virtual open house, a virtual family resource night where we sent home things to the families and then they interacted with us online, and then a virtual family literacy event. Medill, they served 44 students. 62% had a year worth of growth in reading, 67% a year worth of growth in math, and 38% increased language arts, and 41% increased their math grade. They also did additional service learning projects outside of our full organization service learning. They did the Season for Giving. They donated to the Fairfield County Dog Shelter, United Way, Medill Food Service, and Medill Elementary. And then Mount Pleasant, they served 45 students. 57% had a year worth of growth in reading, 71% a year worth of growth in math, and 32% increased their classroom language arts grade, 43% their math grade. They also made Valentine's for the nursing home as one of their service learning projects. This was our organization-wide service learning project. One of the key aspects of our program is to teach our students how to give back to the community, how to contribute to the community, especially when more than likely you'll be living here and growing up here. What can you do to make your community better and support your community? So the Parks Department had their 100 Trees Please fundraiser last year to build up their arboretum. So we had a fundraiser as an organization to raise enough money. We needed $200 to buy the tree. And the Parks Department actually had such an interest in the program that by the time we went to them with our fundraising campaign idea, they already had 150 trees that people were purchasing. So they specifically saved the 200th tree for us, so that by the time we held our event, if all those other trees had been taken, we still would have a tree reserved for us. We have not received notification yet because of delays in getting the trees that our tree has been planted, but we're excited to make that announcement once we do. It will have a plaque saying it's from Afterschool Programs of Lancaster, and our students will be able to go up and see it grow year to year and know that they helped participate in purchasing that and building the arboretum for our community. So we did things from the students voted on what kind of tree they would want us to purchase, to creating crafts for us to set out for donations. And then we had different sponsors come and provided activities and games for students to do all around Earth Day and trees for the event. So we had some outside donors as well, but it was pretty fascinating and amazing that all the donations we received from what the students created and then our little raffle items was exactly $200, what we needed for the tree. So they thought that was pretty neat, and we're excited about helping out in that way. We also provide some summer programming. Usually it's just our summer lunch program. This past summer, Lancaster City Schools partnered with us, and we were able to provide some learning programs at Talmadge and Tarhee Trails. So we held our lunch program at 8 locations. We were at Gorsuch West, Medill, Mount Pleasant, Talmadge, and Tarhee as the schools. We also were able to service at Club Apartments, Connection West, and the Y. These were grab and go style meals because of COVID, so people were able to just drive up, tell us how many they needed. We'd put them in their car and they didn't have to stay and eat, which is typically a requirement that they have to eat on site. So we averaged serving about 450 meals per day. And we're a sponsor of this program, but it is funded by the USDA, a federal program, and then it's administered through ODE. So we are just a sponsor of it, and then they reimburse us for meals that we serve. Our summer learning programs serve 92 students, grades K through 5. We had 2 4-week sessions, and students could attend both sessions or just one. They worked on, again, those remedial skills for language arts, math. We did some social emotional learning, had New Horizons come in and partner with us and do a little bit of programming. Allie Parks came in, and then those iExcel programs as well, they were able to use. So every year we can apply for up to 3 grants. This year we applied for grants at General and Thomas Ewing as 1 grant combined. They would share a grant if they received one, because we really want to get back into those junior highs. We understand that once students leave our programs in the elementary schools and then head to the junior high, they're still in need of support, additional support to continue to help them make growth and improvement. So we scored 4.2 on our grant application for that school this grant cycle. The minimum required is 4.32, so we were very close. It is an extremely competitive grant process though, so we will try again next school year. And then Talmadge and Tarhee Trails, Talmadge scored a 3.58, Tarhee scored a 4.08. They are in a different grant category, so their minimum required was 4.34, a little further off, but we will try again, like I said, for next school year as well. Our scores are dependent on the grant readers. There isn't one rubric that they, all the grants are submitted through. It is dependent on like 3 grant readers per grant. So different grant readers could have read different grants, and that's why they scored some of our sites so differently, even though the grants are fairly similar. And there were 145 applicants statewide. They only awarded 16 of the option 2 grants statewide and only 10 of the option 3 grants. So a very competitive grant process. Current grant cycles, they are 5-year grants currently. They used to be 5-year a long time ago, then they switched to 3-year grants. Now we're back to 5. So Gorsuch West and Medill are in year 4 of year 5, and then Mount Pleasant is in their 2nd year. So next school year will be the last year of grant funding for Gorsuch West and Medill before we have to reapply and try again. And Mount Pleasant still has 3 years remaining. This is our current enrollment as of October. As you can see, Medill has our highest enrollment right now, and this is childcare and grant. So childcare enrollment is the green color, and then our grant program is the yellow color. We have made gains in this throughout November, though, in both childcare and mainly our grant program, trying to fill up those slots that we have open. So here's grant enrollment. Gorsuch West has the highest grant enrollment currently. They have about 10 spots to fill as of the beginning of November. Medill was maxed out for their grant slots. We're trying to hire more staff so that we can service about 20 more students. And then Mount Pleasant was about halfway to their open slots. We're additionally trying to hire more staff there as well. This is our contact information. Again, I'll keep that up there, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about more of the programming that we do. So on top of our grant programming, we offer that childcare piece that I was mentioning earlier, and that's private pay, or we also accept JFS publicly funded childcare or even kinship. So people, who have difficulty or need assistance in childcare can also attend our program as well. We operate in the morning, 6 a.m. to 8:45. So parents find it very convenient and kind of something they appreciate, that they can bring their students to the school that their child attends and have childcare provided there, not have to worry about them being transported later in the day or transported back at the end of the day. They're all in one location for the morning and then for the afternoon. In the afternoon, we pick up our students at 3:30, and then we are open until 6 o'clock. In the morning, we provide the same kind of enrichment and activities, lessons with language arts, science, art, math, all of those aspects as well. It's just not as involved in the morning as it is in the afternoon, because most of our students come and they're still waking up, and we don't start right away at 6 a.m. We let them warm up a little bit before we start that programming in the morning. In the afternoon, since they're coming to us right after a full school day, we give them some time to decompress, chat, hang out with their friends. So we jump right into recess and then a snack time that we provide for them at no cost to the families. That's another program provided by the USDA for our students. And then we get into our programming. So they're doing their IXL, they're doing their work with their teachers on their lessons and homework, and then we're doing that enrichment component as well. One aspect that we are trying to increase from where we used to operate is with that volunteer base. Unfortunately, with COVID, we weren't allowed to bring in outside people into the buildings. Now we can do that a little more easily and freely, but we also provide volunteer opportunities through Zoom as well. You can sit at home, get on a Zoom with one of our students. They're in our program in close proximity with their teacher, and you can work with them for 20 minutes. And we try to cycle students out every 20 minutes for about an hour. So you'd be able to work with 3 different students for 20 minutes. If you come to our building, there are other processes that we have to go through. ODJFS requires us to have fingerprints and background checks and medical statements on people that come work with our students, but those are costs that our organization is able to reimburse you for or cover, so that you can become a volunteer and not have to pay out of pocket just to be able to come help and build relationships and really mentor our students. Like I said, with ODJFS, that's the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. They license each of our locations. So even though we are one whole organization, Afterschool Programs of Lancaster, each of our locations has to have a separate license. So each of our locations has to meet the requirements to be licensed by JFS. That means we have administrators at all of our locations that have to fulfill and comply with their regulations and rules and meet the requirements to be administrators. And then we also have this Step Up to Quality rating program that the state initiated, trying to build and ensure quality in all of our programs, all programs of childcare statewide. This means each of our sites has to qualify for those requirements independent of each other instead of one full organization. 3 of our locations are currently rated. 2 are currently in the process to become rated. Our biggest struggle is with staff turnover. If we have staff that meets the requirements for us to get a rating and then they leave or they switch positions, the staff that comes into that position is not going to meet those requirements right away. So we have to wait and then try again to get star rated. So that's where we are with that process. Lots of rules and regulations that my staff has to stay apprised of, I have to stay apprised of, and things are always constantly changing and updating. So part of the job that makes things a little more not as much toward how can we help the students, but how can we stay compliant and make sure that we're operating in a way that we can stay open and meet all those requirements. So to go along with volunteering, if you're interested, if you know anybody that's interested, we do have a form on this website, apolancaster.org, or you can email contact@apolancaster.org for more information. We'd love to get people signed up, started working with our students. As well as the volunteer aspect, we also are looking for people who would be passionate about helping students, passionate about what impact you can have on these students that ultimately will impact the future of Lancaster, ultimately impact the future of our community. We do have an advisory council, and we are looking for more people to join. We want more of a voice and to share more of what we're doing and how can we do more, what can we do, how can we sustain our program so that we aren't solely relying on grant funding? How can we sustain and provide services to students from the time they're kindergarten, first grade, all through the elementary years, and then pick them back up in junior high and continue to provide that support, that mentoring, that relationship to them, to give them a great foundation and base those early years of life. So these are all things that we are looking toward, looking forward, trying to come up with solutions and ideas, and need really a team of people that have a vision, have a passion for our community, for our future, for our kids that would like to join us. So if you're interested in joining our advisory council, we meet 2 or 3 times a year. Currently it's through Zoom. That's the easiest way to get everybody involved, and with all the busy schedules that are around. Our principals are involved. We have a couple of community partners that do attend, and we're trying to get some parents involved as well for their input on our program and what they would like to see, as well as some of our students. We want to know what our students like, what they don't like, what they would, how we could reach them even better. So again, you can always email contact@apolancaster.org if you're interested in the advisory council or know somebody that would be. And you can always call us too at the phone number 740-653-5678. I think that's pretty much all that I have. Broad scope overview. I could talk forever about things that we do with our students and pictures galore. We do have a Facebook page, Afterschool Programs of Lancaster, if you ever wanted to get on there to go through photos, even more of some of our programming. And it's just very rewarding and very exciting to see little growth, little steps that our students make. Even when they come to you really excited one day and they say, hey, I can read the Excel questions now. I don't need to push the speaker and let it read it to me. I learned how to read these words, and very excited. So even those little accomplishments that you don't know when they're coming, and those are things that, carry you throughout the year. So